Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, Made You Book. My name's Gretchen, and today I wanted to take a little bit of time to talk about my most anticipated book releases that are coming out in March. Now, first things first, you probably have noticed that I'm not in my usual filming location. I am traveling for work this week, so I'm coming to you from a dark and dreary hotel in Utah. And I know the lighting is horrible. I know the sound is probably equally as bad, but I wanted to make sure that I got this video filmed and I was able to have it edited in time to release, to give you a little bit of time before March so that if there's any books that you're interested in, you can incorporate them into your reading plans. You know, instead of waiting until I got home, I just figured that I would see what I could do here, and we're just gonna work with it. Also, this is the first video that I have done talking about anticipated releases. I'm usually talking about books that are already out that I want to read, or I talk about my reading plans for reading challenges, or I'm doing reviews for single books. And I realize that some of my favorite videos to watch are learning about those new books that haven't come out yet, that have buzz, and that a lot of people are talking about. So I decided that instead of doing all of that research on my own and figuring that out for myself, that I would share what my lists are with you guys. So if it's something that you like as far as videos go, let me know. I do plan on at least doing a couple of these to see how they go. So if you like the video, if you like this type of content, please let me know in the comments below. So let's get into the books. The first book that I am looking forward to is The Extinction of Irena Ray by Jennifer Croft, and this is published by Bloomsbury. Now, anytime I see the name Jennifer Croft, I immediately get excited. For those of you that don't know, Jennifer Croft is typically known as a translator. She translates books from Polish, Ukrainian, and Argentine Spanish. So she has a wide range of books that she translates. She's also award-winning. She was the translator that paired up with Olga Tokarczuk. They won the International Booker Prize, I believe it was in 2019, for Flights. They were also shortlisted for the Books of Jacob in 2022. And not only is she a talented translator, but she also translates her own books that she writes in different languages. And one of those, she was actually longlisted for the Women's Prize last year for a book called Homesick. And she's such an immense talent in the literary world. And when I saw that she has her own book coming out, I was so excited. Now, this book follows a group of 8 translators, and they are getting together to translate the masterpiece of this famed author named Irena Ray. And prior to them getting together in Poland to start work, Irena Ray vanishes. She just disappears. And they get to Poland and they decide that they're going to continue with the work of translating, but they also start to do some of their own detective work to try to figure this out. So it just seems like it's going to be a book that has a lot of drama, a lot of secrets, a lot of egos with the different translators, and I am so excited to get my hands on it and start to unpack all of it. So another book that's being released on the 5th of March is called The Great Divide by Cristina Henriquez, and this is published by Echo. And this is described by the publisher as a powerful novel about the construction of the Panama Canal, casting light on the unsung people who lived, loved, and labored there. I'm sold just by that little blurb. First of all, I am fascinated by the Panama Canal in general from an engineering perspective, but I also know that there is a history of tragedy and displacement that surrounds the Panama Canal. So I'm really curious to kind of dig deeper into that and see what the author has to say about all of those different things. I know that there's a dark past there, and I really hope that this book sheds some light on that. It sounds like it's going to be very informative. It sounds like it's going to be emotional, and hopefully it's a thoughtful tribute to those that were involved and impacted by the building of the canal. So really looking forward to this one. And this is another book that I have my eye on because I'm also trying to put together my long list predictions for the Women's Prize for Fiction, and this kind of sounds to me like a book that definitely has the potential to make that list. So really looking forward to getting my hands on it and seeing if that's truly the case, if it meets the Women's Prize standard, but we'll see March 5th. So with the next book, we move from historical fiction surrounding a very well-known event in world history to a very unknown part of U.S. history, which is no surprise because I'm constantly learning about pieces of U.S. history that were absolutely horrific that just got swept under a rug. So I'm really looking forward to reading this next book to find out about that untold history. The book is called Pelican Girls, and it is by Julia Malye, and it is published by Harper. And this book follows a journey of women coming on a ship from France, and they are called the Balian Brides. So basically, they were taken from these Paris asylums and they were brought over to the Louisiana territories in North America to be the brides of these French colonists that came in and staked claim on that land. So I'm sure that this is going to be a very emotional story. I'm sure this is going to unpack a lot of unsavory truth that we as the states have tried to hide. When it comes to French colonization, we think so much about British colonization in the states and what happened, but we also have territories that were taken over by the French, and this is a topic that I'm really interested in learning more about, and I can't help but think that this might be this year's version of This Other Eden by Paul Harding. Remember, that book brought to light a piece of U.S. history about Malaga Island in Maine that a lot of us were not aware of, and I can't help but feel like that deja vu about reading the synopsis of this book because it seems like it's going to do a very similar thing, but obviously with a different event in our history. So really, really looking forward to this one. And I have one final book that's being released on the 5th of March, and this is where I really get to geek out and probably show a side of myself that I should be embarrassed to talk about, but I'm not. It is called The Riddle of the Sphinx by Anna Schectman, and it's published by Harper One. And I know that this book is not going to be for everyone, but it sounds like it's going to feed my little nerd soul, and I cannot be happier about it. So basically, this is a memoir about a puzzle creator and the history of crossword puzzles, and this is right up my alley. I absolutely love crossword puzzles. I have been doing them for as long as I can remember, from those super simple ones you used to find in the backs of tea TV guides and People magazines to the Saturday and Sunday crossword puzzles in the New York Times. I do a crossword puzzle almost every single day, and for my money, you can't get better than a rainy or snowy Sunday with a hot cup of coffee and a fresh New York Times crossword puzzle. Like, that is heaven to me. So when I found out about this book, I was so excited, and I'm fully aware that it's nerdy. You don't have to tell me. I know, and I own it, and I'm proud, and I cannot wait to read it. All right, so we move on to the week of March 12th, and this is actually a pretty quiet week for me. There's only one that I'm super excited about, and that is Vulture Capitalism by Grace Blakeley, and this is published by Simon & Schuster. And this one was brought to my attention because it was recently longlisted for the inaugural Women's Prize for Nonfiction Award. So I looked over the long list, and there were several books that I was interested in, and this so happened to be one of them. The publisher's blurb says, "It illustrates how corporate and political power brokers have used planned capitalism to advance their own interest at the expense of the rest of us, and how we can take back our economy for all." So that sounds very interesting for me for a couple reasons. Mainly because it sounds super polarizing, and since the author is based in the UK, I'm really curious to learn whether the content of the book remains fully relevant for us consumers over in the States, and whether or not there's a lot of differences between capitalism in the UK versus that in the States. So I'm really interested in kind of digging more into that. I am going to do my best to try to read the long list for the Women's Prize for Nonfiction, but this one sounds interesting enough for me that if it doesn't make the short list and I can't read the entirety of the long list, this will be one that I will still continue to keep on my TBR because it does sound like something that I would be interested in reading. All right, so we are moving on to the week of March 19th, and the first book is actually probably one of my most anticipated reads for the entire year, and that is James by Percival Everett. Percival Everett is hands down one of my favorite authors. So this pick, as soon as I saw that there was a new Percival Everett book coming out, it was a given for me that it would be on my TBR. And then once I found out that it's a retelling of The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, I was over the moon excited. Everett is no stranger to praise for his work. His literary talents are off the chart. He was shortlisted a few years ago for The Trees for the Booker Prize, and that ended up being one of my favorite reads from 2022. Everett is arguably the best satirical writer that we have in the States. His writing is sharp, it's shocking and comedic, but his true superpower is his unapologetically raw social commentary about racial injustice that it just withstands the test of time. And the reason I say it withstands the test of time is for any of you that have seen the movie American Fiction. It's a movie that's in theaters now in the States, and it is nominated for several Academy Awards this year, and it is based on a novel that Everett wrote called Erasure that was written back in 2001. So this book was written 23 years ago, and it is still relevant to this day. And I just think that it shows you how good of an author he is to be able to take a book that was written 23 years ago and be able to seamlessly adapt it to something that is still current in the States, and probably not just the States, but all over the world when it comes to racial injustice. So I'm not only endorsing Percival Everett's work, I'm also endorsing that movie. It's fantastic if you haven't seen it, and it sounds like something you would like. It's a great movie. The writing, it's up for adapted screenplay. The writing was fantastic, and then of course the acting is just superb. So it definitely gets my seal of approval, and I cannot wait to get my hands on this book. Moving on to my next anticipated release, we have The Morningside by Tea Ohbret, and this is published by Random House. Now, I have a feeling that a lot of people are going to have this book on their anticipated books for March. She has some well-loved books that she has released in the past, specifically The Tiger's Wife, which actually won the Women's Prize. Well, at the time it was called the Orange Prize, back in 2011, and she was actually a finalist for the National Book Award that year as well. So she is a well-loved writer, and this is another one. I need to check the UK publishing date because this also might be a good prediction for the Women's Prize long list for fiction for this year as well. This book is described as a sweeping novel of mothers and daughters, displacement and belonging, and wondrous tales of a world both fallen and new. This book takes place in the near future, and after being forced out of their home, Sylvia and her mom find themselves in this dilapidated luxury apartment building that is referred to as the Morningside. And it's also in this new city in which half of it is completely underwater. So we have Sylvia, she's removed from her childhood home. She's now in this foreign place, and things are not looking good all around her. She has a lot of questions, and she is wondering why she's there, why they had to leave their old house in the first place. And I know that I'm probably missing some key points there, but this sounds like the type of light dystopian that I really tend to enjoy, and also pair that with a writer that has already an established reputation for being a good, beautiful writer. I'm really looking forward to this one, and this will actually be the first book of hers that I have read. I know that even though she's established, this is an author I have yet to get to, but I am excited because the premise of this book sounds really good, and like I said, part of me is also thinking this is a good pick for a Women's Prize prediction as well, so I want to make sure I get it on my TBR just in case when that announcement is made, it makes that list. So the final book that I am looking forward to that's released on the 19th of March is called Memory Peace by Lisa Coe. This book focuses on female friendship and how the backdrop of what is going on around us in the world helps shape us into the people that we become. The most fascinating part of this book to me is the fact that it spans from the early 1980s through the 2040s. So we're covering a span of time where we are in kind of like that pre-digital age where we were not dependent on technology. Everything in our life was basically super low tech, and the technology that we had access to was a luxury. So not a lot of people had it, to a point where we are currently living in a world where technology is a vital necessity to our everyday life. Then we get to the 2040s where we're going to get speculation on where we are with technology at that time. And I am super excited about that. That sounds fascinating to me, and it sounds absorbing. And that also, because we're dealing with friends and we're covering a very large span of time, there's going to be the potential for drama, and I am always a fan of that. Okay, so now we're in the last week of March, so these are the releases for the week of March 26th, and the first one that I want to talk about is called All the World Beside by Gerard Conley, and this is published by Riverhead. And this one is set in the 18th century in Puritan New England. in, I believe it's a fictional town in Massachusetts. And basically it follows two men that fall in love, obviously despite the strict expectations of their community and in that time in our history. So we have Nathaniel, who is the town reverend, and he is highly respected in the community. And then we have Arthur, who is the town physician, and he relishes in Nathaniel's sermons, and he also respects him, and that respect eventually turns into love, and he develops a deep passion for him. So this book is set in a watertight, close-minded community and time within our history. Their love is certain to piss people off, so I am so looking forward to the unpacking of all of that drama. It sounds like it's going to be an emotional read. This is not a subject I think I've read about in that time period, so I'm really curious to see where this goes. We're down to the last few. So the next one is called Sleeping Giants by Rene, Denfeld, and this is published by Harper. And this sounds like such an epic saga type plot that has a lot to offer. So basically, this follows a story where 20 years ago, there is a 9-year-old boy who gets caught up in some rough waves off of the coast of Oregon, and he is declared dead. Now, we have Amanda, who is a girl that was adopted. She was adopted as a baby, so she knows very little about her history prior to that, and she learns that she had a brother, and that brother is dead, and she never knew that she had this brother throughout the duration of her life. So she obviously has some questions surrounding that she wants to get answered. And with the help of a retired police officer named Larry, they go on this journey to kind of uncover what they can find out about her brother. And when they start down that road, they start to uncover all of these horrible things, these just atrocious things that happen during his stay in a foster home. So this book sounds like it's going to be gut-wrenching. There's a lot going on, and hear me out. This, to me, is giving me such Old God's Time vibes, and throw in a little bit of Small Things Like These. Like, that is the feeling that this book description is giving me. It sounds super powerful, and like I said, it's going to have those gut-wrenching moments, and if it is done right, this book sounds like it has a potential to be a standout for me this year. So I am crossing those fingers, because this sounds like a book that is right up my alley. All right, so we have two more, and my next one is called Glorious Exploits, and it's by Ferdia, Lennon, and this is published by Holt. Now, first of all, this cover. Even though I know nothing about this book, I knew I wanted to read it the second that I saw it. It brings me joy. Second, this book sounds like it's going to be super funny. It has a very unique plot, and it sounds like it's just the perfect balance of weird and wonderful that I like in my books. So I'm not even gonna try to summarize this myself. I'm just gonna read what the publisher blurb is. So it says, on the island of Sicily, amid the Peloponnesian War, the Syracusans have figured out what to do with the surviving Athenians who had the gall to invade their city. They've herded the sorry prisoners of war into a rock quarry and left them to rot. Looking for a way to pass time, Lampo and Gellin, two unemployed potters with a soft spot for poetry and drink, head down to the quarry to feed the Athenians, if, and only if, they can manage a few choice lines from the great playwright Euripides. Before long, the two mates hatch a plan to direct a full-blown production of Medea. After all, you can hate the people, but love their art. But as opening night approaches, what started as a lark quickly sets in motion a series of extraordinary events, and our wayward heroes begin to realize that staging a play can be as dangerous as fighting a war, with all sorts of risks to life, limb, and friendship. I mean, ring it up, please. You've just sold a book. So getting that book. It sounds amazing. And I love that it tackles the topic of separating art from the artist. We have authors and artists and musicians that put out things that we really like, and then we start to learn about them as a person. And does it change the way we feel about the works? Is it okay to still like those things? Can we truly separate the art from the artist? So this sounds relevant. It sounds fascinating. Plus, I mean, I still can't get over those googly eyes on the cover. I love it, and I can't wait to get my hands on this one. And last but not least, we have A Great Country by Shilpi Somaya Gowda. And this is published by Mariner. This book follows a family named the Shaws. They are Indian American, and the parents came over prior to having children in search of the American dream. They ended up having 3 American-born children, and they have finally reached what they consider the pinnacle of the American dream. They have recently purchased a home in the Pacific Hills. It's a gated community. It's a coveted community, and they finally feel like they have truly achieved and made it in America. Then one day there's an incident where their 12-year-old son ends up getting arrested, and basically their dreams are shattered, and they now must face the fallout and the consequences within their community. And it sounds like it's going to have a lot of social commentary. It sounds like it's going to be a very fast-paced read. And it also sounds like something that could easily be adapted into a movie. So I'm hoping that the story really digs deep into those issues and it just doesn't lie on the surface. So I'm hoping this one ends up being as good as it sounds. Well, those are all the books that I'm looking forward to reading in March. If there are any books that you think I missed or I overlooked, please let me know. There is so much research that goes into trying to stay on top of all the book releases that are coming out, so it would be very easy for me to miss one or for one to slip through. So please let me know if you are looking forward to any books that I didn't mention coming out. And of course, until we read again, bye!